Emma had always been a dreamer. Growing up, she spent countless hours imagining what her wedding day would look like. The elegant white dress, the flowers cascading down the aisle, and the warm smiles of loved ones gathered to celebrate her special moment. To her, marriage wasn't just about tradition, it was about love, partnership, and starting a new chapter with someone who truly understood her. And when Ryan came into her life, he seemed like the perfect person to share that journey with. Ryan was everything Emma could have hoped for in a partner. He was kind, patient, and supportive, always encouraging her to chase her dreams while standing by her side through thick and thin. Their relationship blossomed naturally over time, built on trust, laughter, and deep conversations late into the night. After 2 years of dating, Ryan proposed during a quiet evening under the stars, and Emma said yes without hesitation. It felt like the beginning of something beautiful. But there was one person who didn't quite see things the same way. Ryan's mother, Linda. From the very first meeting, Emma sensed that Linda wasn't entirely thrilled about her son being with someone outside their cultural background. Though Ryan assured Emma that his mother would come around eventually, Linda's subtle jabs and passive-aggressive remarks made it clear that she wasn't warming up anytime soon. Linda's disapproval became more pronounced as the wedding planning progressed. She often criticized Emma's choices, from the style of the invitations to the menu selection, making snide comments about how traditional weddings were supposed to be done. At first, Emma tried to brush it off, chalking it up to generational differences or simple nerves about the big day. But as the weeks went by, Linda's behavior grew increasingly difficult to ignore. The tension reached its peak the night before, the wedding during the rehearsal dinner. The venue was decorated beautifully, with twinkling lights strung across the ceiling and soft music playing in the background. Everyone was dressed in their finest attire, laughing and enjoying themselves as they prepared for the main event. Yet even amidst all the joy, Linda managed to cast a shadow over the evening. As the guests mingled, Linda pulled Emma aside under the guise of wanting to talk privately. At first, Emma thought nothing of it. Perhaps Linda finally wanted to mend fences or offer some last-minute advice. But instead of warmth or kindness, Linda launched into a lecture about the importance of maintaining certain values in a marriage. "In my day," Linda began, her tone dripping with judgment, "a bride came into her marriage pure and untouched. It set the foundation for respect and commitment." She paused, looking Emma directly in the eye as if trying to gauge her reaction. "I hope you understand how crucial that is." Emma felt a chill run down her spine. She knew exactly what Linda was implying, but she chose not to engage. Instead, she forced a polite smile and nodded vaguely, excusing herself as soon as possible. As she walked away, she couldn't shake the feeling that Linda's words carried an underlying threat, one that hinted at deeper issues lurking beneath the surface. That night, as Emma lay in bed staring at the ceiling, she replayed the conversation in her mind. Was Linda simply stuck in her old-fashioned ways, or was there something more sinister brewing? Emma reminded herself that tomorrow was her day, a celebration of her love for Ryan, and she refused to let anyone ruin it. Little did she know, however, that the storm clouds were already gathering, poised to unleash chaos just hours before she was set to walk down the aisle. Despite the unease lingering in the back of her mind, Emma drifted off to sleep, dreaming of the happiness that awaited her. She envisioned herself standing beside Ryan, surrounded by friends and family, exchanging vows filled with promises of forever. In those fleeting moments of peace, the worries faded away, replaced by the hope that tomorrow would bring nothing but love and laughter. Yet unbeknownst to Emma, fate had other plans. Somewhere in the shadows of the night, secrets were about to be uncovered, and the foundation of her perfect day would be tested in ways she never imagined. For now, though, all she could do was rest, trusting that love would guide her through whatever challenges lay ahead. The morning of the wedding dawned bright and clear, with sunlight streaming through the windows of the bridal suite. Emma woke up early, her heart fluttering with a mix of excitement and nerves. This was it, the day she had been dreaming about for years. She stretched lazily in bed, taking a moment to savor the quiet before the whirlwind of activity began. Today was supposed to be perfect, but as the old saying goes, even the best-laid plans can go awry. After a quick shower, Emma slipped into her robe and began getting ready. Her bridesmaids bustled around the room, setting up makeup palettes, curling irons, and trays of snacks. The air buzzed with chatter and laughter as everyone worked together to transform Emma into the radiant bride she envisioned. Amidst the chaos, there was an undeniable sense of joy, a shared anticipation for the ceremony that would soon bring two families together. Meanwhile, downstairs, Linda sat alone in the corner of the living room, nursing a cup of tea. She hadn't slept well the previous night, her thoughts consumed by the conversation she'd had with Emma at the rehearsal dinner. Something about the way Emma had responded, or rather, hadn't responded, left Linda feeling uneasy. There was a flicker of doubt in Emma's eyes, a hesitation that gnawed at Linda's suspicions. What was she hiding? Curiosity eventually got the better of her. As the rest of the household prepared for the big day, Linda decided to take matters into her own hands. She quietly excused herself from the group and made her way upstairs, telling anyone who asked that she needed to check on something in the bridal suite. No one thought twice about it. After all, Linda was always meddling in one thing or another. When she reached the top floor, she hesitated outside the door, listening to the muffled sounds of giggles and music coming from within. Peering inside, she noticed Emma's overnight bag sitting near the edge of the bed, partially unzipped. It wasn't unusual for someone to leave their belongings lying around during such a hectic morning, but Linda saw this as an opportunity. If Emma was keeping secrets, perhaps they were hidden somewhere in plain sight. Carefully stepping into the room without drawing attention, Linda rummaged through the bag under the pretense of tidying up. At first, she found nothing out of the ordinary: makeup brushes, spare bobby pins, a pair of slippers. But then her fingers brushed against something unexpected, a small, leather-bound journal tucked away beneath a pile of clothes. Intrigued, Linda pulled it out and flipped open the cover. What she discovered inside sent shockwaves through her body. Page after page was filled with Emma's neat handwriting, detailing intimate thoughts, reflections, and memories. Some entries spoke of her love for Ryan, while others delved into personal struggles and triumphs. But one particular passage caught Linda's eye, a heartfelt confession where Emma admitted to losing her virginity years ago during a past relationship. Linda froze, her blood running cold. To her, this revelation wasn't just surprising, it was scandalous. In her mind, a bride should enter marriage untainted, preserving her purity until her wedding night. This belief was deeply ingrained in her, shaped by decades of cultural norms and societal expectations. And now here was proof that Emma had violated what Linda considered sacred. Her initial shock quickly gave way to anger. How dare Emma deceive her family like this? Linda felt betrayed, not only by Emma but also by Ryan, who must have known about this and chosen to ignore it. Didn't he care about upholding tradition? Didn't he value the sanctity of marriage? Determined to confront Emma, Linda stormed out of the room, clutching the journal tightly in her hand. But as she descended the stairs, her mind raced with possibilities. Confrontation alone wouldn't be enough. This was too serious to sweep under the rug. Someone needed to hold Emma accountable for her actions. And in Linda's distorted view of justice, accountability meant involving the authorities. By the time she reached the kitchen, Linda had formulated a plan. She grabbed her phone and dialed the local police station, her voice trembling with indignation as she explained the situation. "I need you to come to my son's wedding venue immediately," she said. "There's been fraud. The bride misrepresented herself. She's not who she claims to be." On the other end of the line, the officer sounded skeptical but promised to send someone over to investigate. Satisfied that she had set things in motion, Linda hung up and leaned against the counter, trying to steady her breathing. Her heart pounded in her chest, partly from adrenaline and partly from guilt. Deep down, she knew her actions were extreme, but she couldn't stop herself. Years of pent-up frustration and judgment toward Emma had boiled over, clouding her judgment. and pushing her to act impulsively. Upstairs, Emma remained blissfully unaware of the storm brewing below. She was busy having her hair styled, humming along to the soft playlist her maid of honor had queued up. Every so often she glanced at her reflection in the mirror, marveling at how different yet familiar she looked. This was the happiest day of her life, or so she believed. As the hours ticked by, the atmosphere in the bridal suite grew increasingly lively. The final touches were being added to Emma's makeup, and her dress hung nearby, waiting to be slipped on. Outside, guests began arriving, chatting excitedly as they took their seats. Everything seemed to be falling into place perfectly. But, just as Emma stepped into her gown, a sudden commotion broke out downstairs. Raised voices echoed through the halls, followed by urgent knocks on the door. One of the bridesmaids rushed in, her face pale with concern. "Emma," she stammered, "there are police officers here. They want to speak with you." For a moment, Emma thought she hadn't heard correctly. Police officers? Why would they be here on her wedding day? Confusion turned to panic as she hurriedly finished dressing, her hands shaking as she adjusted the veil on her head. Whatever was happening, it couldn't be good. When Emma finally emerged from the bridal suite, flanked by her bridesmaids, she was met with a surreal scene. Two uniformed officers stood in the hallway, speaking quietly with Ryan and his father. Nearby, Linda hovered anxiously, her expression unreadable. Guests lingered awkwardly in the background, whispering among themselves as they tried to piece together what was going on. Ryan immediately stepped forward, wrapping his arms protectively around Emma. "What's happening?" he demanded, his voice firm but laced with worry. One of the officers cleared his throat and gestured toward Linda. "We received a call alleging misconduct related to the wedding. We're here to investigate." Emma's stomach dropped as realization dawned on her. Somehow, Linda had managed to twist the truth and turn this beautiful day into a nightmare, all because of a private journal entry that no one, not even Ryan, had ever judged her for. Though the situation was far from ideal, Emma refused to let fear consume her. Taking a deep breath, she squared her shoulders and prepared to face whatever came next. After all, she had spent years building a life based on honesty and integrity. If anyone doubted her character now, she would simply have to prove them wrong, one word at a time. As the two police officers stood in the hallway, their presence cast a shadow over what was supposed to be the happiest day of Emma's life. Guests whispered nervously, exchanging confused glances as they tried to make sense of the surreal scene unfolding before them. The air felt heavy, thick with tension and disbelief. Emma, still dressed in her elegant white gown, clung tightly to Ryan's arm, her hands trembling slightly despite her efforts to remain composed. Ryan's face was a mixture of shock and anger, his protective instincts kicking into high gear. He stepped forward, addressing the officers with a calm but firm tone. "Can you please explain why you're here?" he asked, his voice steady though his jaw was clenched. "This is our wedding day. Whatever this is about, it needs to be resolved quickly." One of the officers nodded, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. "We received a call alleging misconduct," he explained cautiously. "Someone claimed there was an issue regarding expectations surrounding the marriage." He glanced toward Linda, who stood nearby, her arms crossed tightly across her chest. Her expression was unreadable, a blend of smug satisfaction and barely concealed anxiety. Emma's heart sank as she realized where this was heading. She turned to look at Linda, her eyes wide with disbelief. For a moment, no words came, just the overwhelming weight of betrayal. How could Ryan's mother do something like this? On her wedding day, of all days. It was cruel, unnecessary, and completely out of line. But even as anger bubbled inside her, Emma forced herself to stay calm. Losing control wouldn't help anyone now. "Misconduct?" Ryan echoed, his voice rising slightly. "What exactly does that mean?" "My fiancé hasn't done anything wrong. This is absurd," the second officer interjected, trying to diffuse the growing tension. "Sir, we're just following protocol. If there's been some sort of misunderstanding, we'll clear it up as soon as possible." Could we speak to the person who made the call? All eyes turned to Linda, who hesitated for a brief moment before stepping forward. She squared her shoulders, her demeanor defensive yet determined. I'm the one who called, she admitted, her voice sharp and unapologetic. And I stand by what I said. There's been deception here, fraud even. Emma misrepresented herself. She led us to believe she was... Linda trailed off, casting a pointed glance at Emma. Something she's not. A collective gasp rippled through the small crowd of onlookers. Some guests looked horrified, others intrigued, but most simply didn't know how to react. Emma felt her cheeks flush with embarrassment, but she refused to let Linda see how much this was affecting her. Instead, she took a deep breath and addressed the officers directly. Officer, she began, her voice surprisingly steady, despite the storm raging inside her. There has been no fraud. No laws have been broken. What my future mother-in-law is accusing me of is based purely on personal beliefs, beliefs that are outdated and irrelevant in today's world. I've been honest with Ryan from the start about my past, and he accepts me for who I am. That's all that matters. The officers exchanged glances, clearly sensing that this wasn't a criminal matter but rather a family dispute gone awry. One of them spoke gently, almost apologetically. Ma'am, if there's no legal basis for these allegations, and it doesn't seem like there is, we can't proceed further. However, we do encourage resolving these issues privately. Weddings are meant to bring people together, not tear them apart. Linda bristled at the comment, her face reddening with indignation. You don't understand, she snapped, her voice rising. This isn't just about personal beliefs. It's about principles, about values. A bride should come into a marriage. Pure and untouched, it's tradition. Her words hung in the air, sharp and cutting, drawing murmurs of disapproval from several guests. Even Ryan's father, who had always sided with Linda in the past, shifted uncomfortably, avoiding eye contact with his wife. It was clear that many people disagreed with her stance, but no one dared to speak up, except for Ryan. Mom, Ryan said firmly, his voice laced with frustration and disappointment. Enough. You've gone too far this time. Who Emma is or isn't is none of your business. We've talked about this before, and I thought you understood that love and trust are what matter most in a marriage, not outdated ideas about purity or perfection. Linda recoiled as if she'd been slapped, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. For once, she seemed speechless, unable to mount a counter-argument against her son's unwavering defense of Emma. Her gaze darted around the room, searching for support, but found none. Even her closest relatives avoided meeting her eyes, silently signaling their disapproval of her actions. Seeing that the situation was spiraling out of control, one of the bridesmaids, a close friend of Emma's named Sarah, stepped forward. She placed a reassuring hand on Emma's shoulder and addressed the officers. Thank you for coming, she said politely. But I think it's clear that this is a private family matter, not a legal issue. Perhaps it would be best if we continued preparing for the ceremony while you handle whatever paperwork is necessary. The officers nodded in agreement, sensing that staying any longer would only escalate the drama. After jotting down a few notes, they assured everyone that there was no cause for further action and left the venue, leaving behind an awkward silence that settled heavily over the gathering. Once the officers were gone, Ryan turned his attention back to Linda, his expression hardening. Mom, he said, his voice low but filled with emotion, you've ruined enough already. Do you realize what you've done? This was supposed to be the happiest day of Emma's life, and yours too. Instead, you've embarrassed her, humiliated our family, and disrupted everything we've worked so hard to plan. Why would you do this? Linda opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. Tears welled up in her eyes, though whether they were tears of regret or frustration was unclear. For the first time, she seemed to grasp the gravity of her actions. The room fell silent, the weight of the moment pressing down on everyone present. Emma, however, refused to let the situation spiral further. Drawing strength from Ryan's unwavering support, she took a step forward, her voice soft but resolute. Linda, she said, choosing her words carefully. I understand that you have certain beliefs, and I respect that. But this isn't about traditions or expectations, it's about love. Ryan and I love each other, and we're committed to building a life together. Nothing you say or do can change that. Her words struck a chord, not just with Linda, but with everyone in the room. Slowly, the tension began to ease, replaced by a collective sense of relief. Though the morning had started with chaos, it ended with a glimmer of hope, a reminder that love, patience, and understanding could overcome even the toughest obstacles. With the crisis averted, Emma and Ryan decided to move forward with the wedding, but on their own terms. They gathered their closest friends and family members, explaining that the ceremony would now take place in a smaller, more intimate setting later that evening. While the original plans may have been derailed, the essence of the day remained intact. A celebration of love, resilience, and the promise of forever. As Emma walked back toward the bridal suite, hand in hand with Ryan, she couldn't help but feel a renewed sense of determination. Yes, the day had been far from perfect, but perfection wasn't the goal. Love was, and as long as they had that, nothing else truly mattered. The decision to continue with the wedding, albeit in a smaller and more intimate setting, was met with mixed reactions. Some guests were relieved that the day could still go on despite the earlier chaos, while others felt uneasy about how things had unfolded. The atmosphere remained tense, but there was also a quiet determination among those closest to Emma and Ryan, a shared understanding that love should always triumph over drama. As preparations resumed, Emma retreated to the bridal suite for a moment of solitude. She needed time to process everything that had happened, to steady herself before stepping back into the spotlight. Sitting down at the vanity, she stared at her reflection in the mirror. Her makeup was flawless, her hair styled perfectly, and her gown fit like a dream. But beneath the surface, she felt raw, exposed, and vulnerable. This wasn't how she imagined her wedding day would feel. Ryan joined her a few minutes later, his expression softening as he saw the conflicted look in her eyes. He knelt beside her chair, taking her hands in his. Emma, he said gently, I know today hasn't gone the way we planned, but I want you to know something. None of this changes how I feel about you. You're my partner, my best friend, and the person I want to spend the rest of my life with. Nothing my mom or anyone else says can change that. Tears welled up in Emma's eyes, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of gratitude. In that moment, she realized just how lucky she was to have someone like Ryan by her side, someone who loved her unconditionally and stood up for her when it mattered most. Thank you, she whispered, her voice trembling. I don't know what I did to deserve you, but I'm so grateful. Ryan smiled, brushing a strand of hair away from her face. You deserve every bit of happiness in the world, Emma. And if my mom can't see that, then maybe she doesn't deserve to be part of our lives, at least not until she learns to accept us for who we are. Though Emma appreciated Ryan's fierce loyalty, she knew confronting Linda couldn't wait any longer. They owed it to themselves and their future together to address the issue head-on. With Ryan's encouragement, Emma agreed to speak with Linda after the ceremony. For now, though, their focus had to remain on the celebration ahead. Meanwhile, Linda sat alone in a corner of the venue, her mind racing with conflicting emotions. On one hand, she felt vindicated, convinced that she had done the right thing by exposing what she believed to be a betrayal of tradition. On the other hand, she couldn't ignore the disapproving stares and whispered comments from family members and guests. Even Ryan's father, usually passive and non-confrontational, had pulled her aside earlier to express his disappointment. You went too far, Linda, he'd said firmly, his tone unusually stern. This isn't about your beliefs or values. It's about ruining someone's special day. Do you really think humiliating Emma in front of everyone is going to make her respect you? Or bring our family closer together? Linda had tried to argue, insisting that she was only looking out for Ryan's best interests. But deep down, Doubt began to creep in. Was she wrong to act so impulsively? Had she let her pride and rigid views cloud her judgment? The questions swirled in her mind, leaving her feeling lost and uncertain. When Emma approached her later, flanked by Ryan and a few close relatives, Linda braced herself for confrontation. She expected anger, accusations, maybe even tears. What she didn't expect was the calm, measured way Emma addressed her. "Linda," Emma began, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside her. "I know you called the police because you believe I misrepresented myself. But I want you to understand something. I've never lied to Ryan or hidden anything from him. Our relationship is built on honesty and trust. Yes, I'm not a virgin, but that doesn't define who I am as a person or as a partner. It's simply part of my past, just like everyone has parts of their past that shape who they are today." Linda opened her mouth to respond, but Emma held up a hand, signaling that she wasn't finished. "I respect that you have certain beliefs, and I'm not here to challenge them. But I need you to respect me too, as a human being and as someone who loves your son deeply. If you can't do that, then maybe we need to reconsider what role you'll play in our lives moving forward." The room fell silent, the weight of Emma's words hanging heavy in the air. Linda looked around, searching for support but found none. Everyone present, including Ryan's father, nodded in agreement, silently backing Emma's stance. For the first time, Linda realized the gravity of her actions. She had crossed a line, and now she risked losing not only her son but also the respect of those around her. Tears filled Linda's eyes as she struggled to find the right words. I didn't mean for things to get this far," she stammered, her voice cracking. "I thought I was protecting Ryan from heartbreak, from mistakes. But maybe I was wrong. Maybe I let my own fears and insecurities get in the way." Ryan stepped forward, his expression softening slightly. "Mom, I appreciate that you care about me, that you always have. But you can't keep treating Emma like she's less than perfect. No one is perfect, including you or me. What matters is that we love each other and are committed to making this work. That's all that should matter." For a long moment, no one spoke. The tension in the room slowly began to dissipate as Linda absorbed her son's words. Finally, she nodded, her shoulders slumping in defeat. "You're right," she admitted quietly. "I messed up. I let my pride and old-fashioned ideas take over, and I hurt both of you in the process. I'm sorry, Emma, for embarrassing you and ruining what was supposed to be a beautiful day. I hope someday you can forgive me." Emma hesitated, weighing her response carefully. Forgiveness wasn't something that could happen overnight, especially after such a public humiliation. But she recognized that Linda's apology, however belated, was sincere. "Thank you for saying that," Emma replied softly. "It means a lot. Moving forward, I hope we can start fresh, with mutual respect and understanding. That's all I've ever wanted." With that, the confrontation ended, not with shouting or blame, but with a fragile yet hopeful step toward reconciliation. Though the wounds wouldn't heal overnight, the conversation marked a turning point for everyone involved. It reminded them that relationships, whether between partners or family members, require effort, compromise, and a willingness to grow. As the evening ceremony approached, the mood shifted once again. The smaller gathering lent itself to a more intimate and heartfelt celebration, free from the pressures of perfection. Friends and family gathered under twinkling string lights, their laughter and chatter filling the air. There was still an undercurrent of awkwardness, but it was overshadowed by a collective desire to move past the earlier drama and focus on the joy of the occasion. When Emma walked down the aisle, escorted by her father, she felt a renewed sense of peace. The earlier chaos seemed distant now, replaced by the warmth of Ryan's smile and the love radiating from those around her. As they exchanged vows, promising to stand by each other through thick and thin, it became clear that their bond was stronger than ever, not because it had been tested, but because they had chosen to rise above the challenges together. By the time the reception began, the atmosphere was lighter, almost celebratory. Guests danced, toasted, and shared stories, their earlier discomfort fading into the background. Even Linda made an effort to join in, offering quiet smiles and tentative congratulations. Though forgiveness would take time, the seeds of healing had been planted. As Emma and Ryan shared their first dance as a married couple, surrounded by those who truly mattered, they knew that their journey wouldn't always be easy. But they also knew that as long as they faced life's ups and downs, together, with love, patience, and understanding, they could overcome anything. And in that moment, nothing else mattered. The evening unfolded like a dream, albeit one tinged with the lingering echoes of earlier turmoil. As Emma and Ryan stood beneath the string lights, surrounded by their closest friends and family, it was impossible not to feel a sense of renewal. The chaos of the day had been replaced by laughter, music, and heartfelt conversations. The smaller gathering allowed for a deeper connection, as if everyone present understood that they were witnessing something extraordinary, a testament to love's resilience in the face of adversity. Emma moved through the crowd, greeting guests, with a warmth that belied the emotional roller coaster she'd endured. She accepted hugs, listened to well wishes, and even managed to share a few laughs about the absurdity of the morning. Despite everything, there was an undeniable lightness in her spirit, a reminder that while life may throw curveballs, it's how you respond that truly matters. Ryan stayed by her side throughout the evening, his presence unwavering. He could see the fatigue in her eyes, but also the quiet strength that had carried her through the day. At one point, he pulled her aside during a lull in the festivities and wrapped his arms around her. "You're amazing, you know that?" he whispered, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "I couldn't have gotten through this without you." Emma smiled, leaning into him. "We got through it together," she corrected softly. "And honestly, I think we're stronger because of it. Not every couple has to face down their mother-in-law on their wedding day, right?" Ryan chuckled, shaking his head. "Thankfully, no. But if anyone can handle it, it's us." Their conversation was interrupted by Linda, who approached hesitantly, clutching a glass of champagne in trembling hands. Her expression was a mixture of regret and hopefulness, as though she wasn't sure whether she'd be welcomed or rejected. When Emma noticed her, she exchanged a quick glance with Ryan before turning to face Linda. "Can we talk?" Linda asked, her voice barely above a whisper. It was a stark contrast to the sharp, judgmental tone she'd used earlier in the day. Emma nodded, motioning for her to follow them to a quieter corner of the venue. Once they were out of earshot of the other guests, Linda took a deep breath, visibly steeling herself. "I wanted to say again how sorry I am for everything," she began, her gaze fixed on the ground. "I let my pride and outdated beliefs get the better of me, and I hurt both of you in the process. That's not what a mother or a mother-in-law should do." She paused, glancing up at Emma and Ryan, searching for some sign of forgiveness. "I won't pretend to understand all the modern ways of thinking, but I realize now that my actions were wrong. I judged you unfairly, Emma, and I treated you as though your worth depended on something that doesn't define you. That was never fair, and it wasn't right." Emma listened intently, her heart softening despite her lingering hurt. Linda's apology wasn't perfect. It lacked the depth and specificity that might have fully addressed the damage. But it was sincere. And, for now, that was enough. "Thank you for saying that," Emma replied after a moment. "It means a lot to hear you acknowledge what happened. Moving forward, I hope we can start fresh with mutual respect and understanding. That's all I've ever wanted." Linda nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. "I want that too," she admitted, her voice cracking slightly. "You make Ryan happy, and that's all any mother really wants for her child. I'll try harder, I promise. Just, please give me another chance." Ryan stepped forward, placing a reassuring hand on his mother's shoulder. "We're willing to work on this, Mom, but it's going to take time. You can't expect things to go back to normal overnight. We need to rebuild trust, and that starts with respecting each other's boundaries." Linda swallowed hard, nodding in agreement. "I understand. Thank you for being patient with me. I know I don't deserve it, but I'm grateful." As the night wore on, the atmosphere grew increasingly joyful. Guests danced under the stars, sharing stories and raising glasses in celebration of love, commitment, and second chances. Even Linda joined in, albeit cautiously, offering smiles and polite conversation to those around her. Though the scars of the day wouldn't fade entirely, there was a palpable sense of healing in the air, a shared acknowledgement that relationships, no matter how strained, are worth fighting for. At one point, Emma found herself sitting alone, at a table near the edge of the dance floor, watching the festivities unfold. Ryan's father sat down beside her, holding 2 cups of coffee. "Mind if I join you?" he asked with a warm smile. Emma shook her head, accepting the cup gratefully. "Of course not. Thank you." For a moment, they sat in comfortable silence, sipping their drinks and observing the scene before them. Then Ryan's father spoke, his voice thoughtful. "You handled today with incredible grace, Emma. Most people would have walked away after what happened, but you chose to stay and to fight for this marriage. That takes courage." Emma blushed, setting her cup down. "I didn't do it alone," she replied. "Ryan supported me every step of the way, and so did our friends and family. Honestly, I think we all learned something today." He nodded, his expression serious, yet kind. "Yes, we did. Sometimes it takes moments like these to remind us what truly matters. Love, acceptance, forgiveness, they're not just words. They're choices we have to make every single day." His words resonated deeply with Emma, echoing the lessons she'd gleaned from the whirlwind of emotions she'd experienced. Life wasn't about avoiding conflict or striving for perfection. It was about navigating challenges with compassion and integrity. And though today hadn't gone according to plan, it had ultimately strengthened her bond with Ryan and taught her the value of standing firm in the face of judgment. As the clock struck midnight, signaling the end of the reception, Emma and Ryan gathered their belongings and prepared to leave. Guests lined up to bid them farewell, showering them with hugs, kisses, and heartfelt goodbyes. Among them was Linda, who lingered nervously at the edge of the group. When it was her turn to say goodbye, she hesitated, unsure of how to proceed. Finally, she stepped forward, pulling Emma into an awkward but genuine hug. "Take care of my son," she murmured, her voice thick with emotion. "And thank you for giving me another chance." Emma returned the embrace, feeling a flicker of hope for the future. "We'll take care of each other," she promised. "And thank you for trying." With that, Emma and Ryan climbed into the car awaiting them outside, ready to begin their new life together. As they drove away, waving at the cheering crowd behind them, Emma leaned her head against Ryan's shoulder, a contented smile spreading across her face. Today hadn't been perfect. In fact, it had been far from it. But in its imperfections, it had become something even better, a story of love, resilience, and the power of forgiveness. And as they disappeared into the night, hand in hand, they knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, with open hearts and unwavering determination.